Hey, what's up, everyone? Today we are going to be talking about forgotten exotics. Or the Titan. Now, you may be wondering, what does it mean, forgotten exotics? Now, it means exotics that either don't fit into the game or just don't do their job well enough to be picked over other things. They just kind of fallen into the back and just kind of sit there and say, please use me, but they are never used. Now, I'll say there are a couple of them that most people agree. Some people might not agree with some, but that's your choice and that's okay. Now, what do I mean by usability? I mean that in any content, they are not usable. So this applies to PvE and PvP. So take something like Dune Marchers, for instance. Dune Marchers is really good in PvP. You're not gonna really use Dune Marchers in PvE. There's better exotics for PvE than Dune Marchers, but it has its place and I don't think it's fallen behind. It does what it needs to do, right? And it's okay to have PvP and PvE exotics. I don't need to both work in both places. And just for the record, I am a firm believer that PvE and PvP should be separate. Like the balancing should be separate. Things should work a little bit differently in PvE compared to PvP, because there's always going to be that instance where something is really good in PvE and not so good in PvP, and something's going to be good in PvP and not so good in PvE. So it's okay if an exotic shines in PvP but doesn't shine in PvE. But what we're going to take a look at today is those exotics that really don't fit anywhere. So how are we going to start this? What exotic are we going to start with? We're going to start with Mask of the Quiet One. Now, why Mask of the Quiet One? I just don't think it does anything good, or it's not worth it to run over using something like One-Eyed Mask or Dune Marchers, right? Because this realistically is a PvP exotic. It doesn't do what it needs to do well, because Mask of the Quiet One gives you an overshield. Sure, you don't get the ability energy, but there's so many ways to regen ability energy in this game that Mask of the Quiet One kind of has fallen behind, and there's nothing that it does that would make me be like, yeah, I'm gonna put Mask of the Quiet One on for this PvP game because I want to do whatever. I think it needs an overhaul. I think it needs something to make it feel more exotic, because right now its thing is very, very weak. It's basically just a fragment of a subclass. It's not an aspect. It doesn't improve an aspect. It just is a fragment of a subclass, and it's a very weak one at that, because why would you want to be critically wounded to gain advantage of your exotic? Now on to number 2, Kytan's Ramparts. Now this one's kind of a disappointing. I know it was a terror in the Crucible because it's lame for someone to have the ability to shoot you and you cannot shoot them, but I think they nerfed it a little too hard maybe for PvE aspects, because now it's completely unusable in both PvP and PvE. Its barrier health is so low, and the time that it takes to get a barrier is so high that it just has become unusable. It's almost like they just wanted to move it to the background and never touch it again, but I think it could have some pretty niche uses, or pretty nifty uses, if they do it correctly. They could essentially make it like the Titan's version of like a chromatic fire, or even a bombardiers, or like depending on your super or subclass, when you shoot through it causes certain effects or what have you. It really doesn't matter, but it needs a little bit of something. And obviously the first thing they should do is in PvE increase how long it stays on the field, or the barrier health of the shield, because it's currently unusable. I think a level 1 drag in the Cosmodrome could probably destroy the shield in a couple shots. That is not usable. On to number 3, we're going to be talking about Icefall Mantles. This one I was really hyped for because I thought it was going to get the rework with Stasis, but it did not. I assume that has to do with the fact that its barricade shield or overshield counts as a different type of damage resist than Frost Armor, but besides that, the main downfall of this exotic is the fact that you cannot sprint while having your barricade or overshield active, which I think really just makes this exotic F tier. Like, don't ever put this exotic on. And realistically, there's never an instance in Destiny where you're just like, I don't want to be able to move. Because if you really think about it, we strafe so much when we play this game that having something that slows you is not a good mechanic, and there's no reason to have it. The exotic is not going to be so broken that will be a must-have if you made it so that you could sprint while having the overshield. Now, I could see a case, maybe it might be a little broken in PvP, but there's already crazy things in PvP, and they could tune it or change how the overshield works so that it wouldn't be broken in PvP. Again, I am a firm believer that the balance should be separate, and if they need this to be bad in PvP, then leave it bad in PvP. I want to use it in PvE because I think it looks cool, and it has the slow effect is dope when you cause the freezing slow around you, but you can't use it because you can't sprint. So I think it is a bad exotic and it needs some help. On to the next one. Now this one might be a little controversial, but I think no backup plans is bad. I think it needs some help. I think that it either should refund shotgun ammo on kills, or it should allow you to get your overshields off of a single kill, because it is too hard to proc overshields with the shotgun if you have to kill multiple enemies, where you have to kill a high level enemy, because you don't get the shotgun bonus to actually kill those enemies. Now, what am I saying? If you're going to pull your special weapon out to kill a higher level target, right, this thing would require you to either kill another high level target before you kill the high level target, or kill multiple enemies before killing that high level target to gain the overshield, to have the damage boost to really shred it. But that's kind of like a weird gameplay loop, because that requires there to be multiple ads, and if there's multiple ads, why not just put something that ad clears on? There's no like single target damage that you could do. Now you can proc overshields with like bastion barricades and stuff like that, but I'm thinking about the exotic on its own, that it doesn't do it well enough to merit it. Now, it could work with prismatic. I don't know for sure, but because I haven't really tried it, because I really think this exotic is bad, so I might eat my words. That's why people might disagree with me. But as far as I know, it's not that great of an exotic. Now we're going to lump two together. We're going to lump Actium War Rig and Peacekeepers, due to the fact that they boost certain aspects of weapons. And we're not going to dive too deep on it, but if you've ever used these, especially in PvE, they're pretty underwhelming. They don't do anything to help your weapons enough to merit use over anything else. And the fact that something like Lucky Pants can exist, but Actium War Rig and Peacekeepers can't get some love to like either damage boost your weapons that the exotic boosts, or some sort of like anything. They just need a little bit of help. I don't think they're necessarily like crazy bad, but I don't think that they're crazily good. And I feel like compared to the other exotics, they don't do anything that well. Now, MK44 stand-asides. This one's just confusing, I'm going to be honest, because when it says overshield, it is not referring to void overshield. Now, how could that be confusing? It's confusing, again, because there's no clarification on this. I think this exotic just needs some clarification on what it means by overshield. And if they're not going to give it, then they need to simplify it and just make it a void overshield, so that anybody that picks up the game could look at it and know that, oh, void says overshield, this says overshield, they must go together. I should probably use them together. Now I know you can use them with any shoulder charge, but it would make more sense to the average player that, oh shoot, overshield, they are the same thing. Or if it's going to be its own type of overshield, that it should clarify that this is not the same as Void 3.0. Now, Path of the Burning Steps. I think realistically, just to make this thing good, they should make it so that it amps either higher or gives you higher ability damage or shorter cooldowns on your solar abilities. It needs a small bump, because it just feels kind of like, haha, I'm doing the same thing that surges do, but you have to waste an exotic slot on it. Haha. Like it's kind of a weird exotic that I really don't feel fits in the game. Now, the last one we are going to talk about Antaeus wards. Now, I know Antaeus wards were the bane of the Crucible for a long time, but I think that they kind of got done a little too dirty to have it tied to your class ability, so you had to choose between using your barricade or using that. I think it's just kind of a confusing gameplay loop, because if you throw down your barricade, then you can't use it at all, or if you use it on accident by sliding, then you just don't have a barricade. I think it's a little confusing, and it's too easy to activate without trying to activate it, if that makes sense. Now, I don't want it to come back in mass and be the thing that Shotgun Ape Titans use, but I do think it needs a little bit of love. I think it needs some rethinking a little bit, because again, half the time, if you ever put this on, you'll find yourself sliding and wasting your entire barricade because you slid. And sliding is so much a part of this game that it's very easy to just slide, oops, barricade gone, like, geez. Now, this is my list, right? You could choose to disagree or agree. And hey, if there's some that you think that should have been on this list, let me know down in the comments. But if you totally agree, let me know as well. But that's all I have for you guys today. If you enjoyed this content, make sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys later.